All right, perfect. Yeah, it's great to be here again. This is my fourth presentation to the group since 2019, and this talk will try to bring all the threads together from the previous three. So in 2019 in Munich, I spoke about the idea of grand challenges, prizes, competitions, and how they can accelerate the pace of innovation, particularly for data sharing in the automotive sector for Mobi. In Los Angeles, I talked about the idea of monetizing data using the tools of the financial system built on decentralized infrastructure and using the models of intellectual property, securitizing it, collateralizing it. And the example I used was with David Bowie and the Beatles music collection, where they constructed financial products to create bonds. And this was an idea on how you could unlock the latent value. And I gave everybody kind of an overview of what was happening in the decentralized space to allow for these primitives to be built. And since then, actually, the idea has been popularized with an explosion onto the public consciousness of NFTs. So what I talked about in 2019 is now essentially reality in certain sectors like gaming and art. And then last year, I explained how Ocean had built the primitives and the technology that allows for this data sharing, for this technology to be used for data sharing, specifically on decentralized rails, but also being able to protect privacy and allowing people to monetize. And so this talk is intended to bring all this stuff together that I had spoken about in the last three presentations. The core theme of my past talks is that data is an untapped asset waiting to be unlocked with a combination of new technology, mindset changes, and new business processes. I think this is possible. As a starting point, we have to acknowledge that publishers need to feel safe and secure and comfortable to share. And if we can solve this, then the next phase is to have pricing signals on the data to incentivize people and to show them really what their value, what their data is worth and what the value is, and get the cycle going. So today we're going to delve into the further advances that have been made in Ocean towards these goals. And then we're going to talk about why data isn't being shared as much as it could be. And I'm going to propose some steps to how we can start unlocking it. And at the end, I have an offer for all of you. So stick around for that. My team and others have worked 8 years to build out the tools and technologies to allow for this data sharing to happen. We use blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And when I started this journey in 2013, 8 years ago, it was pretty much possible to follow every single innovation and project in real time. And today, that's just not possible. So I think we're getting there. It feels like we're close to having the pieces in place to unlock data at scale. The technology stack is maturing very, very quickly. And many of the core infrastructure pieces are ready to be used with successful models of bootstrapping and new economies forming in the Web3 space for decentralized finance, non-fungible tokens, even decentralized autonomous organizations, to the point where now the decentralized space has a total value of about $3.6 trillion, which is more than all the value of all the startups on Earth, all the unicorns, everything. And so this crypto decentralized space is moving very, very fast, and there's a lot of value being sucked up to it and quick. And we think that data is ripe for this. But of course, there's still a lot of challenges to improve the user experience. We need to raise awareness and educate people. We should streamline the onboarding process because that's not obviously intuitive. There's still a lot of room for risk and phishing in the crypto space. And we need to teach people that if they are able to put things into kind of digitized format using these tools, that they're able to apply the tools of finance to make all of this happen. So I'm excited to share with you the latest advantages in the upcoming Ocean release V4. And right now I'm going to just go through some of the features that give you a flavor of what's available to help you to help people now start onboarding with using your data, sharing it, monetizing it. So we'll start with the Ocean market. The Ocean market is kind of the main way for people to interact with Ocean. It's the front end application that you can access from any browser. Users can see the data sets. They can do something called staking. They can buy it. They can consume it. But what is still missing is a pull to draw people in, whether that's a wider range of useful data, maybe bounties to kind of pull and suck people in, or even like a request form to allow people to ask for the type of data that they're looking for. For data providers, Ocean Market is open source software that's freely available to anyone to clone, to copy, and to make their own marketplace. The code is completely available to inspect, so you can any vulnerabilities can be found and fixed very, very quickly. And it because it's open source, it rides on the kind of the work on the many rather than being closed. In V4, the providers can set their own fee schedules for each transaction, as well as price data in whatever currency they want. So the advances we made in, let's say, the last 14 months is essentially just giving more kind of tools, features, and control to all the various participants and stakeholders. We've integrated both DeFi and NFTs into the Ocean market, so super users can do staking and get a cut of transaction fees. It's a little bit more interactive and stuff, but we just have a whole bunch more. I guess the summary of the Ocean market is that we now have a more mature front end that people can start using Web3 technologies. This includes the cryptocurrencies of Ocean, plus anything else that kind of interacts with it, plus this concept of NFTs and decentralized finance. The idea is that these technologies are future facing. This is where the world is going to head. And the ability for us to have kind of a live demo that is in production that already secures, I believe, several $1 million worth of data allows for people to start trying this stuff out, getting familiar with it, and using it. And so we're very happy for that. And this is one of the very first kind of data markets available using Web3 technologies. I want to quickly talk about Ocean smart contracts. You can think of the smart contracts as, or you can think of Ocean as an operating system for AI and data sharing. And the engines for that are smart contracts. They serve to enforce conditions of access, facilitate payments, execute a transaction, and just execute business logic more than anything else. It's essentially like a computer in the sky that you can program that allows for these transactions to happen anywhere on Earth at any time, given the proper inputs. And nowadays, there's multiple kind of blockchain networks, and we interact with all of them. And these smart contracts are the core building blocks on which protocols live on. And so this allows for trustless exchange of value, but also providing a perfect audit trail on what's been done with the data, who's bought, like not who's bought what, but what transactions have happened and what actions have been done of it. And this is a very strong kind of use case. It's not that your data or your business is being exposed, but rather there is a registry of truth on what has happened. And it turns out that is a very valuable benefit that I can answer later on in the questions if you guys have more. But at the core, it's super beneficial because any participant can trace back and see what has happened directly on the blockchain. And this means that audits and inspections can be automated so that there's a continuous monitoring on what happens to your data and your data sets. Publishers could get daily reports on how many data sets were sold, what was done to them, and be notified of any exceptions or flags of misuse. And so what it does is this kind of machine language, this economy that allows humans and machines to operate kind of seamlessly, gives publishers and consumers the transparency to feel comfortable to share overcoming one of the main concerns that we've heard until now. In other words, if you can see what's happening to your data in real time, uh, you're going to know if something wrong is happening. But more often than not, because everything is transparent and run through smart contracts and audited, you're just going to be able to see all the good things happening, whether there's transactions happening, getting customer feedback, all that sort of stuff. And it's going to be much more transparent for everybody. One of the third pieces that we have is meeting the needs for people to kind of share their data without exposing it. And for that, we have kind of a reference implementation, which we call compute to data. It is privacy preserving access, which means that as a publisher, the main risk is, can I stop people from stealing my data? And the answer is yes. Right now, there's a host of tools being developed across the entire space, which allow for privacy preserving compute to happen at multiple fine grained levels. So the entire data set, a specific operation, and there's a whole bunch of things happening that really gives us hope that any type of computing that you're going to want to do on a data set, any type of action you want to be able to run, will still preserve its privacy. And so this compute to data is our first cut at this, but we're working with several other entities right now to integrate their privacy preserving algorithms and solutions directly into Ocean Market. So you can kind of imagine having a menu of what type of privacy protection do I want to implement on top of my services in order for it to be consumed safely. And so this is something that we feel that is going to give people that comfort and security to just start dipping their toes into providing their data more than anything else, because there's a lot of demand for their data if it was just made available. We hear a lot about cryptocurrencies nowadays. More and more people are comfortable acquiring it, holding it, using it to navigate the blockchain economies. There's about 15% of the American public apparently holds crypto. Funny enough, in about a dozen other countries, the number of population that actually have crypto is above 20%. And these are countries such as the Philippines, Nigeria, and other places that you wouldn't have necessarily thought would be on the edge of innovation. But this is what crypto does. It kind of invites the world in, and it allows everybody to participate. And so that's a really kind of positive signal of this technology. If you look at where crypto tokens are right now, we're at about 1997. It seems like there's about 200 million active wallets. And this is 1997 in terms of the internet, when there was about 200 million users. And this is with Ocean, it's kind of a native crypto token for the Ocean network. It helps to run the smart contracts. Plus, we use it for a whole bunch of other purposes like governance, staking, rewards, and such like that, bounties as well. It's a standard for this data economy, and it acts as kind of the means of payment in the ecosystem. And the thing that we had, though, is that you can use any cryptocurrency, or in the future, you'll be able to price your data also in fiat currencies when we have kind of an exchanger built in to Ocean Markets. We'll have plugins that allow you to kind of go from fiat into crypto and back and forth. Our whole goal is to make it so that data sharing becomes easier and easier. But right now, of course, we're building it using kind of cryptocurrency and stuff like that. So it is kind of it's mandatory that people have cryptocurrency wallets in order to interact with this stuff. But we'll move on with that as technology goes. And then data tokens and data NFTs. Here's probably, I'm not sure if this is the hardest part to grok sometimes, but it could be. Data tokens are essentially, well, let me put it this way. If you want to play pinball game, you kind of need to throw in that token to play the game, right? And the way we've architected this is that it's the same thing with data. You need kind of a token in order to access data, and that is kind of the data token. And a publisher could obviously set the price of the data token at, let's say, $100. But in our Ocean Market, and based on feedback that we got from the community is that people don't know the value of their data. And it's going to be a long time before people kind of realize the value of their data, especially if they've never tried to sell their data. If data hasn't been kind of a core business line, how do you know what to price your data at? So you can, of course, throw out a number and say $100 and see if there are any takers in there. But it turns out that there's an innovative technology that allows for tokens to be dynamically priced by the community in real time without affecting the data itself and all that sort of stuff. And that's what data token builds on. It's kind of a Web3 technology that if the community takes a look at your data or understands who you are and what you're trying to provide, they can help price your data. It's actually really simple, but the data token concept allows for a data asset to develop its own dynamic of price, liquidity of that price. So like people are actually trading data tokens without the actual underlying data moving. And then at the end, because that there's kind of a dynamic price on the data token, and it's the token that allows you to get the access to the data, de facto, it is the price of the data. It's an interesting concept that we're experimenting with. It's very native Web3. It's a little bit hard to grok, but at the same time, we think that it's an interesting experiment to see how we can price data into the future, especially for data assets that we don't really know what the price is. If you take the data token concept to its logical conclusion, if a data set is so well used and so broadly traded, you could kind of say that that data set has IPO'd, if you think about it, right? Essentially, it's a stock that also grants you access to use the data if you want. So it's an odd idea because one of the things that we've realized in the Web3 space is that speculation and pricing are fundamental pieces to a market. And in a nascent market, there is actually only speculation because nobody knows what the right answer is for the price. And so by using that dynamic, this primitive that has been with humanity since the very start of trading, we think that we can start unlocking data through data tokens. So that's a little bit of a foray into why we're taking this approach. Now, data NFTs is similar but different. Imagine that you have a data set and you've generated it. Let's say it's for like your doctoral research. You don't really need the data anymore. But it turns out that an automotive company would like to have that data set. And you say, okay, well, you could generate a data token and give access to that automotive company or another automotive company. And, you can sell these data tokens and you can use it that way. There's another thing you could do is that you could say, why don't I create a data NFT for the licensing rights to this data asset? And then what happens is I will sell you this data NFT to this automotive company, and you can not only use the data, but then now you can improve it and market it. In other words, you've licensed out your intellectual property for somebody else to use and monetize themselves. And you can do this by saying there's one NFT. So I'm selling you the data set, lock, stock, and barrel. You own it. Do whatever you want with it. I'm done, right? So it could be like, think of an NFT for a car, right? You essentially give away the car with the NFT, right? The physical object with the digital NFT. Or what you could do is do licensing. So what happens if you actually are an Uber driver and there's 24 hours in a day, or sorry, you have a car and you want to rent out your car to Uber drivers. You can have 24 NFTs representing 24 hours. And those NFTs can be essentially bought, sold, and traded. And you actually don't care who buys that NFT. You're just granting access at that particular time to your asset. If it's non-rival, like let's say a data set, going back to kind of the digital world where millions of people can have this sub license, it's essentially like a song. You can say, here's this data set, here's 1,000,000 NFTs. All of you can have kind of a copy of it, and it allows for access and use. And that's another way that you could essentially monetize your data set. So we have two approaches. One is a data token, where you kind of maintain control of the data asset, as well as the you can kind of watch over how many people are trading it and what the price is from a dynamic perspective. Or you could have something like data NFTs, where you generate, let's say, 10 sub licenses, sell them off, and then you actually don't care. Like those NFTs are free floating, but whoever has that NFT continues to be able to access your data set, and you commit to keeping it fresh. So those are some of the innovations that I want to kind of go through with you, because I think that they're interesting Web3 native future-facing technologies that we're going to hear a lot more of. The Ocean Market, which is the front end, allows people just to use things completely open source. Compute to data, which is the privacy preserving stuff. The Ocean Smart Contracts, which is kind of the engine. And they can also be forked, by the way. You can take those and turn them into your own if you want to. And then Ocean Token and data tokens and data NFTs. These are all the kind of features that I want to walk through with you today, because I think that they're it's food for thought more than anything else. With these building blocks, Ocean gives you the tools to sell data and monetize it. Any publisher can now monetize their data using these innovative channels without any reliance on a centralized party, a software as a service provider. They have full control over their commissions, their business models, everything. You can't be deplatformed. There's no censorship on this one. Whoever runs the marketplace runs the marketplace. And so we think that that allows for a flowering of innovation, but it also allows for different business models to be tried out by whomever needs to in order to get a data economy going. Yeah, so that's a deep dive into the technology, sharing, monetizing data, and some of the latest advances in Ocean. So why isn't data being shared as much as it could be? I'm going to propose some steps that you can maybe get you started on that. Just taking a step back, every week I have dozens of phone calls with companies that are interested in blockchain and sharing data. And I've heard 100 different ways how data is collected, but it just stays locked up. If I ask any specific person, do you have data that you think you could share right now? Almost everybody in those phone calls can say yes. They can point to a couple of data sets. Yeah, we could probably publish it. We haven't done it, and we don't know why, but we're just not doing it. And so they always ask the same questions. It's, how do I get started with data sharing? What are the risks and legal implications? You know, are there any kind of laws that I'm breaking? Is there anything that I need to be concerned about? How do I ensure that the data is safe and won't get stolen? And then finally is, what happens to the data? Is there an audit trail? How can all that stuff work? And it turns out everybody has the same questions and concerns, and every conversation is kind of a recognizable pattern at this stage. But there's excitement, there's curiosity to learn, and there's also a sense of opportunity to start building a new business line. But there's so much hesitation, and so I want to address that directly, because I think some of you on this call might be at the start of that journey, or maybe partway through that. I think we're kind of overthinking it. I think that we need more experiments that put small amounts of value and reputation at risk, so that we can learn and make adjustments organically. I think this is what the startup world has taught us. I had a call yesterday with somebody who wants to share their data, and it's agricultural data. And they said, we had this data set that we think is so valuable. It's like satellite data, imagery, that's kind of global and stuff like that. And what we came to was, you kind of need to take that first step, because we actually don't know what the market is going to say when we try to release this data. And they're really open to opening up their data. But it's also clear that the path isn't clear for everybody. No one's cracked the riddle. No one knows how to package, market, and sell the data in a Web3 world. And we're all kind of learning and flailing in this new environment. But it's kind of my strong conviction that we can start sharing data now, and we're just too scared of it because I don't know why. Nobody's actually told us we can't share data. And it turns out that many of you on this call have exactly what the market is looking for. It's not your core product, but it's actually your data. You guys are all sucking up so much data that your IT departments are probably struggling to handle it all. I know because I came from that world. I was that Joe Schmo in the IT department trying to buy more servers to handle all that data when I was working at Mercedes. So it's such a shame that data isn't being shared and the value isn't being gotten from it right now. So I'm going to start talking about the easiest way to monetize your data right now, even today. Yeah. And it's a 3-step approach. Maybe it's overly simplistic, but I wanted to get, talking about this. So number one, as I said, all you have some sort of data that's available. It would be great is out of this workshop or shortly after, some of you come out to me and say, I got a couple data sets that might be interesting. Let's give it a go. Forget about obviously any data that has personally identifiable information, anything that is exposes that type of stuff, business secrets, but any data about supply chains, manufacturing, energy. Sorry. Give me a sec. Sorry. Okay, sorry. So every company's got this type of data, and what I would suggest is just get your feet wet in the Web3 world, oceanmarket.com kind of thing. Find the data, package it, publish it on Ocean Market. It's actually pretty simple. You need a kind of a web wallet, crypto wallet, and stuff like that. You can publish and all that sort of stuff. And what this kind of first step does is it allows you to get your feet wet and understand some of the basic tools and paradigms of Web3, from setting up the wallet to generating your own kind of account and using the tools available. It's the best way to learn and demonstrate also to stakeholders how to navigate the world of Web3. You can actually kind of share with your team members. I published some data in blockchain. Not a lot of you guys, not a lot of people can say that actually. And you can sell supervisors on a win actually by saying that, yeah, we're experimenting with blockchains, and we'd happily tweet that out for you. One of the things that this does is it kind of gets the idea of understanding what the customer need is, because once you publish that data, good things can start happening, and because you'll start getting user feedback and maybe customer demand. Another thing that we've realized is that just publishing the data doesn't necessarily get eyes onto it. You need to try to explore the value. And if you don't know what the value of that data is, then perhaps you could issue a bounty to explore the value of it. What if you were to say, here's a data set that I think is valuable, but I don't exactly know what it could be used for. I think it could be used for a whole bunch of use cases, but why don't I ask the community to help me to figure out where the value lies? And you issue a bounty. Let's say it's a $5,000 prize. You tweet it out. You get the community involved. We have 250,000 people in our social media in Ocean. So all of them are kind of data scientists. They'd love to have a challenge like this, to go into somebody's data set and give you an answer on what the value of your data is. And then they can win a prize. And I guarantee you that someone somewhere on earth will be interested in your data. It could be a master's student at a university or a crypto native sitting in Utah. Um, and a bounty like this allows you to gather ideas from a broad swath of motivated people, and it gives you valuable feedback and interaction on your actual data set. And what it does is it gives you that feedback when you publish the data set on what what it could be useful for. Uh, the third step is actually get some value from that data. So if you've issued a bounty, you now know how that data could be used. Why don't you have some burning questions? Like a lot of people, just having data and then understanding its use is nice and stuff, but the best thing you can do is to actually get value out of it. And so if you can actually also, this also works in a bounty. If you can issue a bounty as well as the data set and say, what kind of, uh, can you answer this question? This is the question. Here's the data. If you can get me the answer, I'll give you a prize. Just as I talk about this story a lot. In 1999, Goldcorp launched launched a challenge. It was an owner of a new owner of a gold mine. He didn't know where he needed to drill. And the simple challenge was, where is the gold? Help me find it and I'll give $1 million in prizes. And what he got back was 110 sites, 80 of which he'd never seen before. And he got, I think, 2,500 people from around the world to look at his data. And it turned out the people who won the prize weren't even in the mining industry at all. They were visual specialists and such like that, data scientists. Long story short is Goldcorp was acquired for $10 billion to make the largest gold mining company in the world a couple of years ago. And so in less than 20 years, a company went from a value of 100 million to $20 billion because all they did was put a 70 megabyte file on the internet, said, we'll give $1 million in prizes if you can tell us where the gold is. And now they're a $20 billion company. I mean, that's probably the best use case I've ever heard of in terms of opening up your data, asking the right question, putting a prize on it, and then getting a result that makes you a billionaire. So the lesson here is data, when openly and transparently exploited, can be extremely powerful and valuable. And it can be a game changer, but you need to take the chance. So if you have a burning question and you can engage the community to help you to solve it, you might get answers that surprise you. So that's it. That's the 3 steps of getting value out of your data. You post it, you explore its value, and then you solve a business problem. And you can incentivize a global community of data scientists using bounties, either to find out what is the value of the data or to answer a specific question that you think is inside of the data. And I so much believe in this simple 3-step approach that I'm willing to commit today, right now, to the first 3 companies that come to me, a $10,000 prize in ocean tokens to each of the first 3 companies that come to us who are willing to try this out. All you have to do is say, I found a data set. I think it's valuable. I'd like to give it to the 250,000 strong ocean community to tell me what it's worth. We'll put up the prize of $10,000. Or you have a data set, you have some questions that you think that they could answer in the data set, and you pose this to the community and you say, here's the data, here's the business question. Whoever gives the best answer will give a prize. And so for the first 3 companies that come to me, I'll put $10,000 on each of your data bounties. What have you got to lose? In summary, with Ocean, we've been building infrastructure to enable this kind of safe data sharing for everyone. It's there, it's ready to use. We just have to get the wheel going, I think. Ocean v4 is about to be released to give publishers more control, transparency, and ways to monetize their data. It's the most advanced stack of technologies in this rapidly expanding space. And finally, I'd just like to see more experimentation. Imagine the discoveries that are just waiting to happen if data could be opened up. As I said, to support this, we're putting up 10K to the first, each of the first 3 companies that want to try this out to bounty their data and gain insights and solve some business problems. With that, I'm happy to take some questions.
Great, thank you. So yeah, just a reminder, everyone, please send all your questions in the chat box to everyone and I'll read them out. So we have our first question. If there are 1 million tokens allowing access to the same song, aren't they basically fungible?
So the question was, if we have 1 million NFTs, are they basically fungible? Yes. I mean, yes and no. So I think the market would treat them fungible, but if there was kind of a series number, like the first issued versus the millionth issued, there could be some sort of hierarchy, or maybe this is the first lot of 10,000, the second lot, etc. You know, it goes towards the idea of first edition of a book, second edition of a book, etc. So there is an overlap where an NFT essentially becomes fungible, right? And that's by design.
Good. Our next question. What are the most popular data sets traded on Ocean and why do you think they're popular?
So the most popular trade data sets on Ocean relate to crypto data. So data about data. And it's because, as I said earlier, speculation is a core driver for interest. It was something that we wanted to, we tried to avoid, right? Because everybody considers speculation as being kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it didn't seem like, let's say, clean business. But it turns out that speculation is a fundamental need for any nascent emerging market, because of the information asymmetry, because nobody really knows. And so the data about data helps people to trade better, which is kind of a meta play on it. But those are the data sets that are currently being used and consumed on the Ocean market.
How will Ocean Protocol use data NFTs? Will you be able to license underlying IP using the app? And are there any downsides to using the AMM for pricing?
So that was a quite an involved questions. Okay, so how will Ocean Protocol use data NFTs? Will you be license underlying IP using the app? Are there downsides to using AMM for pricing? Huh. Good question. Let me start one by one kind of thing, because I think each of these questions is quite nuanced. So thank you to JT. So let's start with I think the easier one. So are there downsides to using AMM for pricing? There's a couple, one of which we've solved in the Ocean V4. One of the first things is that when we used data tokens and AMMs, what it turned out was that the publisher had 99% of the power. They could mint additional data tokens and kind of dilute the market. They could sell out their data tokens and kind of rug pull on the community and take all the money, leaving the community with nothing, because they controlled, they were the central bank for data tokens for their data set. And so in V4, what we've done, we separated two. You can publish a data set, and then somebody else can generate data, not generate data tokens, but inject into a pool behind your data token. You can also as a publisher, but it's kind of a linear relationship in that it's not an asymmetric relationship. So you as a publisher can publish your data set, you can get all the money and all the transactions from those data set. As that transactions grow, then your portion of the AMM pool grows, but it's not so asymmetric as what it was before. So to answer the question of what's the downside, is that there's a lot of game theoretic aspects that we need to find out. We think that this AMM allows for two major things. Number one, it gives a dynamic price on data sets by the community. And number two, we think that it helps to price millions of data assets, especially in the long tail where you won't know the price of it. That's the biggest advantage of AMM. The biggest negative is that it's relatively a new concept. It's a very simple dynamic, but we don't know how people are going to game the system, because every system can be gamed, and AMM is just one of those components that they could tweak. So that's one thing I'm very certain of. So will you be able to license underlying IP using the app? It's definitely something that we think on the roadmap. I think that the main thing that we're trying to do is make it so that people understand the concept that that intellectual property, like copyright, now has a home. So when you release a book, I don't know if any of you have released a book or done a paper, right? Like your doctoral cert as a paper and stuff like that. You put your name on there and you say copyright. It exists kind of ephemerally. You've claimed copyright, but there's no one who really gives it to you. And what a data NFT does is it allows you to actually put on the blockchain, this is my copyright. And this has one license, one master license that allows dozens of sub licenses to be made, or unlimited numbers. And you control that. So by putting that on the blockchain, you've actually made kind of a timestamp claim, immutable, nobody can ever take it away from you. And that's kind of the main thing that we want to get across with the data ocean market. Now, can you start sub-licensing on the market? I think that probably makes logical sense. I don't think we're there yet. So now that I've thought about this answer, thank you very much. And how will Ocean Protocol use data NFTs? It's pretty much what I just said. It's allowing people to understand that copyright now has kind of an instantiation, even if it's digital. Whereas before it was just like, I claim copyright on this, my child's drawing or something like that. It's way more ephemeral, whereas this is way more, it's somehow graspable. Cool, thank you.
Great, thanks. Our next question is, what's in the pipeline for V5?
So we've worked 14 months on V4. We have to re-architect everything. V5, we have a couple really cool ideas. And probably the one that has the most legs is the idea of having a decentralized compute network. So many of the services that are now being made available, they're still centralized. So the core smart contracts, the token, they're all decentralized. Once they start running, you can't stop them. But it turns out that who runs your processing, who does your computation, who stores the results, who manages the analytics, that's centralized. It's like AWS stores your results. You use some sort of service to run your computation, etc. And what we want to do in V5, I think, is to tie those services in to a decentralized network. So let's say you want to do some analytics. You have kind of the something off the shelf that somebody has put into Ocean Market, which is some sort of XYZ analytics package. And you have this data set, and you have this computed data, or this algorithm. You can put the algorithm and the data together, run the result, and then you take this analytics package off the shelf and then put that on top of the result, and you get analytics off of it. So not only do you get kind of the raw data after you've done your processing, but you also get kind of visualized data, let's just say, for lack of a better term. And if we could have a set of kind of a decentralized set of nodes that allow for this capability to happen without relying on AWS, without relying on a centralized provider, then that, I think, gives people freedom to run computations in the cloud, in the blockchain. And I think that is the next major step. And it turns out that several chains are moving in this direction. I think that Polkadot offers some of this stuff. You have this in Avalanche. And there's a couple other chains that are kind of explicitly making it so you can run subnets that allow for this type of capability. So we're doing research in that.
Our next question, can you give us some further detail regarding your work with the German government?
I think we've shared as much as we could have in terms of who we've been working with and how. We're probably not able to explicitly say what we are doing, although there is a lot of this that is by mandate. Anything publicly tendered is in public databases. We're just not allowed to based on the contracts.
Great. So a question about data unions. What is your take on non-experts supporting cooperative data governance? And yeah, what's your take on that?
So I think data unions is kind of a subset of decentralized autonomous organizations, and something we haven't talked about at all. I don't know if it's been a topic of conversation at Moby, but a decentralized autonomous organization is, I think, a pretty interesting idea. We started thinking about this in 2016 with the DAO, this Ethereum project that was trying to be a decentralized venture capital fund that exploded because it got hacked. But I think DAOs is an amazing thing. Like just at a broader perspective, our corporate and governance systems have ossified. Left or right, up or down, whatever your belief system. I think that the world we live on is kind of a 51%, it's 50% plus one world, leaving 49% pissed off, for lack of a better term. And I think that the governance systems of today are pretty ossified. If you look at corporate governance, it's kind of the same too. You have kind of a defined structure in companies. It works, but there's also strengths and weaknesses. And I think that, lack of a better term, not unsophisticated, but people attacking this problem through DAOs allows for a flowering of governance models where we can find maybe a third governance model or a fourth governance model that actually works. And data unions is a subset of that because essentially it's not communism, but it's a pooling of everybody's resources and then using that as a way to block negotiate with maybe large internet platforms, with governments, with companies on, let's say, your health data or your mobility data or your mobile, your browsing data. And I think that that is a way more kind of healthy approach to take when you're talking about new business models and new structures for society into the future. Because let's face it, everything is global now. And so if you can get, let's say, 1 billion people as part of a data union for their social graph, it's going to have a lot of power to negotiate as well as get money, as well as to market to various companies that type of data. And so I'm very optimistic that data unions are going to be something that we're going to hear a lot more about in the future, especially when this technology gets to the stage where we do have a lot more data sharing. And there's the incentive, the prices are set so people know that the data is valuable. We are going to have this other movement where people are going to say, I want control of my data, and then I'm going to join multiple data unions to market and sell my data to different folks. And it's, in my mind, a more honest way to get universal basic income to everybody because they're actually producing something of value.
Great. So I think we have time for a few more questions. We have another one. Is there any censorship or anything that can be published and traded on this marketplace?
So as I forget what it was, a common carrier. I think that's the word that we used in the late 90s for telecoms. So who's liable for the stuff that runs on the rails? And it turns out that as long as you don't edit and you don't have control of the content, you don't have any editorial control, you're not liable. And so for the Ocean stack, because it's smart contracts, it's Ocean tokens, we can't control any of that. We don't even know what's happening in sometimes, which is a good thing. It turns out that the point of liability happens at the marketplace level. So whoever runs a marketplace, so let's say you have a data marketplace that focuses on NFTs, a data marketplace that focuses on automotive data, something that focuses on maybe health data and stuff. It's up to each marketplace to determine what gets exposed and what gets sold. And so if there's a copyright infringement on an automotive data marketplace, that data marketplace could choose not to expose that data set, right? And so I think that that still allows for society to manage infringements and make sure that certain things that are kind of against that marketplace or the common values of that marketplace don't appear there. But let's be honest, anything that is published on the blockchain, the unique identifier is there for forever. And so just like there's some sort of dark web and all this sort of stuff that exists, that stuff can still exist.
Another question, could there be decentralized data unions?
I think that's exactly what we're looking at. So you have a data union, which maybe is organized, right, by somebody who says, "I give me all your data and I'll market it for you." I think that you're going to have a layering of a data union plus a DAO. So it will be a community-driven thing. The leaders will rise, um, and it will be decentralized. In fact, I think it has to be to a certain extent, at least the core of it. Um, One thing I would like to touch about, because this is maybe this is a little bit adjacent, but because we're in such an innovative and fast moving space, we're going to have a lot of scams and corruption in certain ways. You can't help, if you have speculation, you're going to have some sort of greed, and you're also going to have people who try to take advantage of others. And I think that that's why crypto might have, and blockchains might have a bad reputation, not because the space is bad, or because the intents and what we're doing is bad, but because it's attracting so much kind of new value, it creating new value, and it's also attracting some components of society that would rather take advantage than to build. And so with everything that comes out, whatever the new technologies, whether it's NFTs, whether it's data unions, whether it's DAOs, people are going to get hurt, but hopefully just enough so that we can build up this kind of herd immunity and develop the systems and processes to manage as we go along. So if you hear about like crypto and blockchains is all just scams, it's not that. It's just that each phase, each new innovation is kind of a new paradigm that people have to learn about. And there's obviously going to be a small proportion of people who try to take advantage and hurt others, until we can get the systems in place so that people kind of know the basic rules.
Great. So I think we probably have time for one more question. So crypto has been hit by Musk and criticized because of carbon footprints. How close are we to climate neutral chains?
So I think that the core of energy uses is the consensus algorithm. So if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, they use proof of work, which obviously is burn energy, secure the chain. Most of the other chains where the energy is flowing into are a million times more efficient in terms of energy because they use a different, more efficient consensus algorithm. They solved the ability to keep a chain secure without using energy. And I think that Bitcoin will forever and ever be the kind of energy suck, but I think it also has one of the most simplest and important use cases, which is decentralized money for everybody. And what most people don't know is that if you take banking and gold and all that sort of stuff, Bitcoin still uses less than 1/3 of the energy of the banking system. And I think that it might be a cost that we could justify as a hedge for citizens of the 180 or 190 countries of the world, in case their governments are behaving badly or printing too much money, they always have an exit to Bitcoin. And that might be worth the energy use to secure that network. But for all the other chains that we're talking about, like Polkadot, like Avalanche, like Polygon, and a ton of other ones, their energy use is a million times less than Bitcoin. So we're there. The technology is actually there.
Great, thank you. So we have a few more we can maybe quickly answer. Have you thought about partnering with Kaggle to run the bounties value exploration, given it's well established in the space?
Yeah, we talked about that. I think on Thursday we had a discussion about this. So yeah, that would be great.
Great. And then is Ocean a blockchain oracle? Can you explain why or why not?
No. So what a blockchain oracle is the most well known would be Link, and what they do is they say for this type of data that is important, and you want a real time feed like the price of Bitcoin, for instance. That's probably the best. People kind of essentially stake behind there, and they provide information. And as long as they provide that information, and then other blockchains kind of tie into that oracle, saying becomes the truth for our price feed, then that's what you would use for a price feed. And so that's how Link operates, because you earn money by being one of these nodes. Like I'm going to be kind of putting my energy into making sure that the price feed of Bitcoin is good, and then I get money for that, or I get Link. And where Ocean could be an oracle is if there's a data marketplace that streams data in real time. However, the problem with that is that you're relying on one market with one data set that streams, in which case it's no longer an oracle, it's a centralized kind of data source. So if I think about it that way, I wouldn't turn co-opt the design of Ocean to be in any way an oracle that smart contracts would ever use. I think that answers that.
Great, thank you. So I think we're about out of time, but thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you, Bruce, for your lecture. Just a reminder, this lecture was recorded, so you can watch it back on our website starting tomorrow. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the awesome questions.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.